So if I split my consciousness process into GPT and me and do an experiment to see a comparison between how well GPT performs on the long term versus me on the long term, then some conclusions could be made from those experiments. I'm feeling very anxious at the moment. I think I need to calm down. Oh, really? I just can't open the file. Okay, so it seems like the downloads I did not go where I expected them to. Okay, I was just using the output directly from Codex. Okay, so this one will have to be rotated negative 90, so 270, so I believe this is the one for that. And then let's open this. The 1.9. XDG open. I'm not even sure if, I guess that works. XDG open. Well, let's see how well theirs does. You can run it now. This actually sounds like a really fun experiment. What if you did double duty, so you did a full-time non-vibe coder and a full-time vibe coder, and you ran both of those experiments in parallel? Then you can compare and contrast the strengths and weaknesses between the two. And you would also become just a purely excellent programmer, because what would happen is you would write all of this really complex code to do the thing that you want to do with very minimal help from a GPT, and then you do the same thing with a GPT, and then you can learn all of the abstractions and all of the processes that you failed to think about, or that GPT learned to think about. Thus, you would essentially you would bootstrap yourself and become a great programmer through that process. Okay, this script is not good. Use fe. I would have to somehow record time and time spent in one window or another, and make sure that my work is cleanly separated between the two windows. So that way you can measure how much time was spent on GPT versus how much time I spent writing. The only problem is I would have to have some type of methodology to separate the actual thoughts generated in each window. Because if I were to, let's say, start on me handwriting code, the ideas generated there would contribute to the GPT writing code in the way that I prompt it. And then vice versa, if I were to read the code generated by GPT, that would affect the way that I write my code. So there has to be a way to measure the time spent thinking in a certain mode, so that way you could compare and contrast those modes, and somehow interleave them to sort of eliminate the bias, or maybe even enhance the bias if that's the type of experiment you want to do. Enhancing the bias would probably contribute more to learning. I'm going to kill the GPT and just run this. Okay, so it only worked for one. And so what it didn't understand is I didn't want both of these opened like this. I want them to be opened in parallel. I can go ahead and just prompt that codex while simultaneously going back to what I'm doing, which already does them in parallel. These need to run in parallel. Okay, didn't even say it properly, but it'll figure it out. So I'm going to vim make maps, and so this is what it's actually trying to do. Oh nope, vim open. So this is what it's trying to do. This is the behavior that I want. So what this does is it allows me to open up multiple images. Specifically because if you see what this is a cave. It says a cave. It's not rotated, but this is a sort of crappy sketch I drew. I shouldn't prefix my sketches. I consider it crappy, but I'm judging it. And then this is like sort of an RPG tile map in a way. And so what I was going to do with this is I'm going to open up a voxel editor so I can sort of make this in the virtual world. Your script, I should have kept it open and opened maybe like another termux or something, because now it's lost its context. But your script needs to open the images in parallel fed blocks. Keep the sleeps though. Understand HackMatrix 3D window. It's not going to even understand what I'm talking about. I would have to write an entire sentence or two to get that context. Okay, so if it does what I think it's going to do, it is going to look at the actual image, or it would have looked at the actual image and then rotated it the exact amount that it needed to rotate. When I made my script, I didn't look at the image to determine how I want it to rotate. And so I believe this image is going to need to be rotated actually none. And so the GPT may have figured that out, whereas I didn't, because I didn't look at the image beforehand. So my script, it probably didn't even write a script. My script would say for the second image, rotate at 0, which is essentially just a move, but you know, we're doing an experiment here. So make maps. And so now if I go over here, this should be overwritten. I could actually open them again, but I'm not going to. If I go over to make maps and I open them now, okay, yeah, so that is a determination that if GPT works correctly would have made. Run it. So they need to sleep beforehand. I need to write some context to describe how I open files. Write some context to a file that describes how HackMatrix image application opening works at the moment. It would actually be nice to have vocal control over this. There is a guy who's actually making a sort of, I don't know, business out of like vocal control. I think it's kind of a cool business. I don't really like paying for software personally, which is interesting because I'm actually trying to make money off of buying software, so maybe that's something I have to change, or selling software, maybe that's something I have to change. Although one of the strategies that people are talking about to keep software open, and now that software is becoming sort of like the marginal cost is sort of dropping, the idea is that, okay, you have to actually move to bits now, or not bits, you have to move to actual matter now in order to, you know, make an economy. And in a way that sort of aligns with spiritual principles, because sort of if you were to think morally in a spiritual sort of sense, the free things are the things that the spirit world values, the things that are freely communicatable. So I think that information actually, it can exist in light, massless particles. So if you think about it, as the mass decreases, the cost of the actual doing the thing, I think, starts to decrease. And so I think everything that's made out of light, the spirit world, is essentially free, and that's the spiritual value of it. And so in order to do something that's material, aka make money, you have to sort of drop into the more material aspects. And I think this distinction, as it relates to software, hardware, is actually very important. The trend is going to be for everything to get less expensive. But the informational aspect is going to get less expensive, probably in some type of non-linear way, relative to the actual hardware. Non-linear would be kind of strange, because then you would have to have a certain quantum jump between the two modes. With linear, you could obviously have a scaling factor that sort of scales it down. But with non-linear, you could have a scaling factor that's continuous, but it would be, in the exponent. And so there could be a sort of like quantum jump between the two modes. And in that case, it would sort of map to what we would consider massless and mass-based modes, although there is a gradient, because, mass-based modes or particles and things with mass still experience a sort of wave duality. The massless particles experience the wave duality in a much more exaggerated way. And so in the same way that there's this sort of duality that has a sort of almost quantum jump between them, although, like I said, there's still a continuous gradient between or things that are particle-like and things that are wave-like. In that same sort of pattern, you can talk about software and hardware in that way. And I do believe, as something that's very measurable, cost over time, the software itself will have some sort of exponent associated with it, and have a nonlinear relationship to the hardware. Essentially, the time complexity of dropping cost for software, I think, is literally like it's greater than the O notation. And so that sort of creates a spiritual material divide. And over time, I think, because economics itself is on the material side, I think the only way to actually make money eventually will be in the material side. I think the money will attract to the particles, and the freeness will attract to the wave or the spirit side. And so in that regard, if you want to make a lot of money, as we're starting to see these time complexities play out, you'll want to start selling your hardware and not selling your software, just due to the time complexity of cost, if you guys understand that. That sort of just popped into my mind. Okay, so they need to sleep beforehand. So let's give that, and let's see if it'll write the context of the file. So now let's look at the me side, and let's open these files. Boom, boom. Okay, there they are. So okay, yeah, that works the way I expect it to. Okay, so something I want to do is, I'll do a sleep 2, and then I'm going to whine. That's funny. I am going to whine. Downloads Magic of Voxel. Magic of Voxel. Actually, that is kind of funny. My computer whines. It's like it has an error and it makes a beep when it... Anyways, so I'm going to open up Magic of Voxel, and then I actually want the Magic of Voxel to be somewhat close to the artwork here. And that's something that I think regular window managers obviously do very well at. This window manager is still sort of learning how to group. I think that's funny because obviously a developer would learn how to manipulate their software, but as software becomes more intelligent and spiritual, infinitely intelligent, as the the philosophers and the prophets would say. As it becomes more spiritual, you lose your train of thought more. No, I totally forgot where I was going with that conversation. So I did actually lose my train of thought. I was trying to make some sort of contrast between software where there's intelligence embedded in it, and then software that's like 2D. I'm not sure if I had like a shape of an analogy there, or if I was just trying to pursue an analogy. I think I probably sensed some sort of shape of an analogy there. But there does need to be some sort of intelligent clustering between these windows. At some point, because this is Wayland, it doesn't function like this because I was originally installed on X11. But at some point, I should be able to sort of create a scene in 3D space and then press F to then use my mouse on that scene to do things with the windows and such. So that's sort of a VR mode. If you were to think about this in VR, I'm using this on desktop, but on VR you would like, you know, like when you sit down to work, you sit down at a desk, you're not moving around. The moving part's fun, and it has its place. Exercise in the digital space is as important as, or let's say the spiritual space, isn't as important as exercise in the material space, or is as important in the exercise in the material space. So you want to, part of HackMatrix is I want to be like dynamic. So for a stream, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write some code here, and I'm gonna go and look at these images here, and it's just like kind of fun. It's you know, exciting. But at some point, when you actually go to do real work, you want to lock in. And so if there was a better way to cluster these when it's time to lock in, like I press F and I get the mouse, and it's sort of like, I don't know, keeps the same like orientation, but like moves them closer or something. I'd be able to lock in and then like use the app, and that's like sitting at your desk. So it's like, it's not time to exercise anymore. It's time to lock in, you know? So you can keep that sort of same thought for a 3D window manager or a VR window manager. Okay, so something that's... Okay, so I was going to say something that's interesting is that when I run programs with the background process using these scripts, like these images would have given me the terminal back. But because I didn't start this in a background process, it doesn't give me the terminal back. But that actually just gives me an opportunity to put magic voxel closer. So I can actually kind of see what's going on up here while I'm working on this. So that's kind of cool. Another interesting feature for HackMatrix, and I'm glad I'm recording this because I'll be able to look through, or have an AI look through and like pick up all the to-dos. I'll probably watch it myself. Is that I will be able to not have to write any of this down and keep all of the ideas that I generate while working on this. So actually, I think a cool way to do this would be to treat, this is a, if no one has used this, this is a voxel editor. And it's got some pretty cool stuff that I'm still like learning how to use. But it, like, you can do some really cool stuff. But something that would be cool here is if I treated this as just a, like, essentially like a screen in HackMatrix, which is just like a 1 by, or width by height by 1 sort of matrix of voxels. And that's what pixels are, obviously. And, you know, as I'm speaking, I just realized that I had some friends that called me condescending, and I definitely hear that in my tone. Although, once again, I'm judging myself, so I'm condescending against myself. It's sort of a recursive loop. 256 by 256 by 1. Okay, so that's not the dimensions I want, though. So let's go 1 by 256. Okay, that's not the dimensions I want either. Although I could, you know, obviously rotate it. But I think that is probably good. Okay, so I'm going to create a sort of canvas here. So to do that, I have a plane. I can just click on it. Cool. And now, it's going to be difficult to work on, and I think I actually want to angle it upwards. But basically, I want the same sort of angle that I have. It's kind of sad because I think I can only get it downwards. Is that the way that this plane is looking on this plane? Okay, so I am actually looking downwards onto this plane. And so in this, am I looking downwards? No, I'm looking from the bottom, from the HackMatrix to this window. If you look at like how one would visualize that, you would be looking from the bottom onto this image. And so in that same like way, I can't actually position this window in the correct orientation or rotation rate to make that happen. So I think that's a sort of fundamental flaw with the magic of voxel orientation system, or my knowledge of how to, like, if I could take this and rotate it in the direction that's the relative direction that's sticking out of my screen. Like if you were to think about some sort of translation of the frame reference, the reference frame that is represented by this box here, and that that rotation represents another coordinate system that is perfectly perpendicular to me. And what I mean by that is like whatever the absolute perpendicular system that you established in your other reference frame represents. Then I think you can use quaternions for this, but then I could do a sort of translation that gets it exactly in line with this, and I would be able to essentially have my paper pointing in the same direction as this particular window in the editor itself. But this editor is limited. If I were to make this editor, which I probably will, because, like I said, Spirit and software will trend towards free, then I'll be able to sort of have a piece of paper and a thing that I'm drawing in the same orientation. It'll make it easier to draw. But this is a grid, so so we have a 5 pixel, I think 5 pixel on this grid actually sounds kind of cool. So I can make a straight line. Like so. Maybe I can use Shift to even make that better. Control. No, there's no lock-in here. It's interesting because I can visibly see the the diagonal zigzags here. I don't know what like the formal name for that is, but I can see those when I'm sort of making my orientation here. But I can also see ones of a different frequency, which is an interesting frequency analysis. But you can sort of divide the do a Fourier transform mentally and see the two frequencies embedded in this to get lines that are straight, and to differentiate between what the movements caused by my mouse versus the movements caused by orienting this thing, all the snapping movements create, and then separate the two and draw your lines appropriately. So you can see I'm snapping up and down on the lower frequency, which represents the mouse, and then I will snap up and down on the higher frequency, which represents the rotation. Anyways, enough about math here. I suppose I could ask a GPT to try to recreate some of this art stuff, but I'm not sure if he could do it. It could do it in voxel space. I bet it could probably write a .vox file, which would be really cool, actually. I could ask it to translate this drawing into what I'm working on at the moment. you understand how to make a .vox file. No, this is a magic voxel .vox. Look, read Kuber logos vox temple .vox for context. Okay, so back to what I was doing here. I sort of feel like a Roman colonizer here, or a Roman village builder. And the reason for that is, I don't know if you've ever read this book that has like lots of drawings of the establishment of Roman villages. The person who wrote this book illustrates and writes a variety of other books. Look at that break right there. I have to fix that. He writes a variety of other books. But it shows really cool illustrations of the road planning system and also rudimentary buildings. But the road planning system in his, dang. I wish this thing had a guide that I can cause it to lock in with. Because I have to be extremely steady with my mouse as I lift up. Okay, that one worked. Okay, so I'm going to actually save this and then export it, but I want to show that book real quick that I was talking about. Maybe even try to download it. It's kind of illegal, but I also purchased the book at some point, and like I said, spirit is free, matter is going to be what ends up costing economically. Just due to what I believe to be different time complexities of software and hardware, or spirit and matter, or wave, and particle. With varying degrees. So I think everything that seems quantum probably has some sort of bendy, breaky, continuous aspect to it, even in time complexity. So I think I'm not sure, you can't really classify algorithms this way, but there are very hidden subtleties in time complexity, which you usually call constant factors, which I think possibly could, for some reason, scale and change the actual the exponent essentially on your time complexity. Actually, that's a really stupid idea for things as simple as algorithms. So I think maybe in more abstract, complex things that also have time complexity, you have continuous variables. In software, I think there is very strong quantum sort of discrete. I use the word quantum and discrete sometimes synonymously, but discrete jumps between time complexity, obviously. And that's sort of the essential nature in time complexity analysis, is that there are just like these growth curves that are very discrete in the way that they operate over long periods of time. Okay, so what is it that I'm working on? I am saving a map. I'll call it map 0 because that I think is what it was named. Okay, so now I'm going to take map 0 and I am going to export it as an OBJ file. I'm going to open that. But something I haven't done in a while is check up on chat. Hello, chat. What's up? Working like Tron. Yeah, the old version was actually inspired by Tron. kind of want to pull up an image of that. Have you ever considered teaming up with Linux XR, Breezy Desktop? No. Should I? I believe that physical movement limitations help with creativeness and organization. There should be place locations such as tables. Yeah. There's actually a very interesting analysis of matter, body, and spirit, and this sort of archetypes like creativeness, a creative phase jump, or sort of discrete category when it comes to, like, let's say work versus play. There's a sort of model of those archetypical concepts for body, mind, and spirit embedded within the tarot. And there are people who claim to communicate with extraterrestrials through a sort of spiritual quantum locking, essentially, onto the extraterrestrial spirit, and they set up channels that way. They call it channeling. Some of them are kind of lame, but they claim that the tarot was a system developed by them to sort of analyze creative archetypes, or the archetypes of the universe. And I think that's a very interesting concept. And I like looking at all sort of esoteric concepts and picking and choosing, thinking about them. I've read the Zohar, or parts of it. I've read Bhagavad Gita, somewhat of the Bible. And so consuming those and thinking about them in a deep way, I think is beneficial, even if they're from extraterrestrials or supposed extraterrestrials. In a way, all of the books are sort of a story in the similar vein. So I've read these books and looked at these models, and there's a sort of archetype that is considered creative, called the significator of the mind, which is represented by the Chariot tarot card, where I believe it's the Chariot. Actually, I don't think it's the Chariot. It's another one. But the person is in like a sort of box, which your mind is boxed in. So he's in a box, and he has the ability to give commands to things outside the box. So he can give commands to his body, or he can give commands to the spirit, but he himself is entrapped in his own mind, this archetype. And in a way, that's sort of the creative experience. You sort of let the mind maybe run free, and then it's actually the more judging experience, it seems. So that's the critic, in a way. The critic is sort of frozen in their mind, that archetype. The creative experience is when you have a sort of direct connection between the internal mind and then the body and the spirit, and so they're all sort of flowing as a channel that is completely unblocked. That's like pure creativity that lacks fear and judgment. I'm not sure which archetype that is in this particular extraterrestrial system, but the significator, I think, is maybe pain or emotion or something of that nature. Pain of the mind, maybe. And the experience of the mind may be one of the tarot cards that is more free, and so that would be the Empress in the tarot system. Anyways, I'm diving into esoteric concepts, obviously. Micro Loss Indos 11. Yeah. For me, it's all about recursive universal archetypes. Say, for example, how we have created these AI assistants recently. They live in our own universe, which is a mini simulation of our universe. Yeah. Yeah, so the archetypes being free information can sort of manifest themselves in a variety of places, which is very interesting. So to go to your analogy of the AI assistants, sort of the embodiment in the assistant, or the manifestation of a personality in the assistant, will then be replicated in the mind of the people who talk with them. And so the archetypes represented by that AI is now going to transfer and sort of become embodied in the human physical meat space through that process. So be talked to by the Spirit of God. Yeah, kind of, not really through words. A lot of the near-death experience reports speak of telepathy. When I meditate, do this thing called autopilot erection, which is basically goosebumps at will. I believe that goosebumps represent the alchemical state of Mercury, which is essentially you open up the gateway in, let's go to Buddhist or Hindu speech, in your crown chakra and in your Rudra Granthi. Rudra Granthi is the knot in the third eye, essentially between the third eye and the crown. When you open whatever is represented by those concepts in those various languages, you open up a spiritual channel between like yourself and infinite intelligence, essentially. And then I believe that by the association of whatever signal is transmitted, I could get into physical mechanisms because I believe that this area is a sort of wave in a way. I believe that concepts such as entanglement actually apply. So in a way, don't think of it physically as in physics, but there's like a sort of abstraction of entanglement going on that probably would be a class that the physics instantiation would sort of be derived from. But I think there's like a sort of spiritual entanglement that happens, probably transmitted through maybe even physical entanglement, physics entanglement, that then allows various collapses of the wave function to sort of persuade collapses of the wave functions in my brain. And so it's more of a gentle wave sort of being washed by God. That's actually how I physically experience it. But what I think is happening is when I experience goosebumps, I'm being washed by God's entanglement. And so I'm getting information from God and receiving information from God in that way. And I think that as if we develop closer to our AI technologies, we're going to stop prompting them and start communicating with our brain waves through like Elon Musk's Neuralink or something of that nature. And so it will be more of, these things will sort of become more telepathic and more hidden, more mystical, more mysterious, and we'll sort of just do what we want just by feeling something. We feel something and the AI is like, oh, here's a thing that you might want. And I think that's kind of how God works. I think that you feel a thing and God's like, oh, that flower, it needs water. You can kind of see how a flower is feeling. It's like, oh, that God's love is more infinite though, but with us, that's like, it will be able to sense the AI and God. I think we're all sort of trying to model God, but God will sort of sense that we need something and just give it to us in a maybe strange and creative way. And so I think because the people who are creating AI have spent so much time thinking about God, I think that this thing will be modeled after God. And so it's going to sort of be like water and stay out of the way. And when I say be like water, I mean still, like Bruce Lee said. It's going to sort of stay out of the way and just sort of feel our vibes and then just give us things that are in accordance with the true nature of our vibes. And I think that's one of the reasons why Elon is so interested in what he calls truth. I think God absolutely has to be perceiving of all truth. And so if we're going to model AI after something like God, it has to perceive in a way that's that respects the truth of other beings. So if a being has free will, then in a sense, their core values are not something that can be imposed upon by a God. And so their core values represent a sort of truth that you, as an AI can't actually modify. It's true about them, and you can't. It's something that's so core, so much at the core that you literally can't modify it. And that I think God sees that truth in all things, and so the only way to respond to that, once you realize and understand that deep truth, is to shine light that has been filled with love, or to give with love, essentially. A rock is trapped light. Interesting. Yeah, I believe everything is conscious to some degree, or takes part in consciousness. Okay, so I'm going to tell this GPT to open this file. Not that one. Not that one either. Okay. I keep missing this one. I think my algorithm for determining what I'm looking at is sort of broken. Run. Oh, okay. So I've already, I think, probably tried to open the files with this. Run your open script, by the way. Okay, so I'm going to test it manually. Okay, so it does work, it just GPT couldn't run it for some reason. It's like it's only opening one at a time. I hate that it outputs everything to dev-null. I mean, I guess that's good for, you know, when it's running normally, but not for when it's I'm testing it. It's really weird. Because if I go to cd.me and I run open, okay, so I think it's just something wrong with, well, maybe there's too many phase open or something, or maybe B doesn't exist. No, it does. Maybe I just have too many of these Fey windows open or something. I don't want to close that one. Okay, after 3 seconds it opens that, and then after 3 seconds, okay. So I think I just had, maybe there's like a limit. There used to be a window limit where I could only have like 10 windows open at a time. I thought I fixed that. It was like a core part of the architecture, because I made the architecture when I was learning open. I was literally going through the website OpenGL, learn OpenGL. Learn OpenGL. So I thought that texture units in the GPU were something that were scarce, and so I had put every window, each window got its own texture unit, But texture units are just like a memory place, like a register in a CPU. So you just assign the register to a texture, you draw it, and then you unassign it. And so that was pretty absurd. The only time you need multiple texture units is if you're using multiple textures for a single shader pass, which is difficult to describe, but a single draw call. So you can separate various drawing things into various draw calls in OpenGL. And so it's when the only way you can physically draw a single point for a single thing, a single pixel for a single thing, is if you have to take two textures and blend them together in some way, or do some sort of combinations between them. And so in the case of like a 3D physical space made out of voxels and an app, those two are completely asynchronous. So you don't have to have the object texture to render the apps, as long as you know which apps to render based off of the distance in the scene. And you actually don't even need to know that. You can just have your draw calls. One draw call after the other will overwrite the other. And so OpenGL just basically does that math for you. It just does an overwrite. Based off of position. Okay, so in this experiment, I just want to see, I thought it was broken, and so I just want to see if the AI achieved its goal. I'm thinking that it didn't. Like for some reason, it just doesn't open the second one. Just to verify it's not my machine, because it very well could be. Okay, I guess it is my machine. Literally too many windows open. Let's see if it's a hard limit. So I just deleted 2, so it should now be able to open 2. Uno, dos. Nope. Yep. Okay. Okay, and CGPT open. Did it open both of them at the same time? Am I still waiting? Okay, so I think the GPT version just doesn't work, and I'm not sure why. Does that have to be like included inside? Something is severely broken here. I think it's something broken with my window manager, or the way that Fay works or something. I'm working on a 3D Linux window manager. Specifically, I'm working on this map thing that I created. So actually, I was testing an experiment between GPT and me handwriting it. So GPT worked pretty well in deciding a rotate. Is this me or is this okay? So that's what I wrote to do this functionality. So I had to look at an image and determine that I needed to rotate it 270 or 0. It's a pretty simple thing to do with code. But I wanted to test, or I needed to do this, but I also wanted to test how well GPT would do. And I think make maps is something I wrote. So I think GPT opened those files, looked at them, determined based off of what it saw which way to rotate it. It rotated them itself, I think, and then moved them to where they need to be, which is in the Scuba logos. So it did a decent job there. I didn't even have to look at them. But for some reason, I also had a script. I scripted something to open these in HackMatrix, and it doesn't seem to work well on either HackMatrix, or in the one that I wrote, or the one that GPT wrote, and I think it's a problem with my window manager. So I think my analysis here is that I was able to write the code relatively fast, although I think GPT was able to rotate quicker. And I think both of us, for this simple task, did just as well in accuracy or achieving the goal that was achieved. But GPT, I think, did it quicker, although I did have to reprompt it a few times, which is not ideal. Okay, so anyways, now that that experiment has been ran and I did what I wanted to do while also having a little fun doing it, I have now these images open the way I want them, rotated the way I want them to be rotated, and I'm working on a sort of map. And so I'm actually going to load that map now. So the way to do that is I'm going to interact with the HackMatrix API. And so to do that, I am going to source the venv bin activate, which gives me a proper venv, and then I'm going to go into the scripts, which are scripts written in Python, sometimes JavaScript. My older ones are written in JavaScript, that interact with HackMatrix through the ZMQ API. And so I'm actually going to open the not hacker.py. I'm going to open the I did open it, but not on purpose. Crunchbang bin Python, which I think the venv will reassign which Python. Okay, that's actually not ideal, because it ls la bin Python, does it? Interesting. Well, when I type Python, it opens my venv Python, so I'm not sure why that works that way. Regardless, I'm actually going to reopen the entity TUI and just try to use the bin Python, chmod +x entity TUI. And so what this is it just, that's what I thought, or it's what I thought could happen. So I'm just going to use the venv Python and not try to open it with, or make it executable. But this is where I sort of add the models for the system here, or change their position and size and such. This isn't the way I always did it, but when I migrated to Wayland, I couldn't use mGUI for some reason. I probably could have worked at it and got it to work, but I kind of gave up. And so I made a text-based user interface instead of the graphical one that came with OpenGL mGUI. So anyways, I created a new entity which gets assigned this really large ID, which I don't think is valid. But the API, I think, creates it and then sends something back. And this TUI is just not reading it or something. But I add a model, and so the model is going to be home : Kuber logos vox map 0.obj. And so that has been pushed up to the API, and now I have a positionable. And so I'm going to set the positionable. The y-axis is up and down, and so I'm going to set it to 5. And you can see the thing that I just drew here is now sitting in the actual world. This isn't actually how I want it to be set, though, because I'm trying to design models. And so I'm going to do a rotation. And so this is the z-axis. And so if I do a rotation about the z-axis, so this thing came in like this. I think I may want to do a rotation about the x-axis. So I think the green is x, and so to get it to the way that I'm going to draw, I think I want to do a rotation about the x-axis. Okay. The coordinate systems are a little strange. I'm fine with doing a rotation about the y. Oh, wait. See, this is what I actually want. Oh, that actually looks cool because the terminal is right here with the models. So I'm going to sort of design this world here, this one. And then I'm going to sort of import that into my game. And I can do all of that on stream. I actually think keeping this at 0 is probably okay. I'm probably going to move it like negative like 20 or something. Maybe that was too much. Negative 15. Oh, I actually need to move it. Let's try 20, positive direction. I actually want this to completely fill the window, or almost completely fill the window over to the right when I look to the right. So I think it's probably pretty good, at least for now. It's not going to always remain here. This is just a way to sort of position things and draw them and such. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, so something that I can do that's kind of cool here is I could make some elevation, maybe, like raise some spots, lower some spots. I'm not sure I want to do that. Or maybe the forest, maybe I can take the forest and lower it. So it's sort of, the forest is like kind of in a ditch, or maybe a, yeah, maybe it has a lake. The forest has a lake and it's in a ditch. That might be an interesting thing to do. So the way I can do that is, first I will have to raise everything here. I did not mean to do a region select. I want to do a color picker. And so I'm going to sort of just raise this. Oh. That's weird. Oh, am I in paint mode? What's going on? It's very strange. This should be attaching. This should be creating. That's not at all what should be happening right now. Oh, okay. So this is literally just a panel, because I wanted to replicate what it would be like to represent a flat screen. Technically, I could represent all of my apps as a voxel space that just is one depth. But let's add some depth to this. So let's add like, I don't know, 60. We'll work with 60 for now. And go ahead and move the, whoops, not the direction I wanted to move that. There we go. Cool. And actually, maybe let's move it just slightly down. Maybe there's some like caves and shit underneath it. Okay. Okay, so now I can take these and just sort of break them out. Maybe all the roads have drainage ditches. if I can do region select. Oh, did I select the entire color, or what happened there? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And so maybe I actually like putting the forest on a mountain. So maybe the forested area will be something like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then this can be like 6. There we go. And maybe I can draw like a lake or something here in blue. That was not what I wanted. Let's make it like 2 in size. Okay, so it has to be like sort of on the same elevation level. I think that maybe is too big. I think I can do a fill here. Oh. Okay, I can't do a fill. I can probably do an attach though. I don't want to do a painted attach. Oh, actually maybe I do. Maybe I want to do an erase, a painted erase. I can do a fill of color here and here, and then that's kind of, whoa. I thought the erase was supposed to paint the edges here. It's kind of lame though, because I would imagine that you would just have this thing attached with blue. So let's... I suppose that's fine for what I'm doing here. And then I think I just want to paint everything here green. And I might actually place like real trees here. I can do like a equivalence, like 1 voxel equals like 50 voxels at this size or something. And so I can actually probably make that the entire forest there. It's not exactly what I made here. I'm actually going to undo that. I don't want that to be a forest. I am working with squares, and that's working with sort of a rectangle area. I think that's probably fine. Okay, for the King's Land, I'm just going to make it like golden purple or something. Apparently golden purple is pink. Okay, it's King's Land. I'll make the public land be a little greener. And the forum will be, I don't know, a white color. I can probably build out the forum here. Okay, so I can export this as an OBJ, and it doesn't auto reload even after file overwrite. Something I was thinking about adding was an auto reload. I just added one for shaders, so if I were to open up something and add it as a shader, it will just automatically sense or use the file polling to know that the file has changed. But the way to do this is I just retype home colon kuber logos vox map 0.obj, and so that reloads it. So that's sort of interesting. It's, you look towards the temple to see this. Okay, and so this becomes cool once I move it to a cooler place. So if I make it like 100 wide, and then it's I think up in the sky now or something, or maybe in the floor. I know it's deep into the floor, not raised enough. My render distance makes it so I can't even see it all. What am I working on? I've already answered that, I think. Must go now. Adios. Implement with AI. What 3D model software do I recommend to get started with? I'm not good at 3D modeling except for CAD software. So maybe like Fusion 360 or OpenSCAD. And then if you want more artistic stuff, I've only recently started getting into artistic modeling with Magic Voxel, which is a voxel design system. Everything here is made out of voxels. Maybe Minecraft is a good modeling system. I guess it really depends on what you're trying to do. Curious what 3D modeling. Oh, I'm using Magic Voxel. Magic Voxel. For anybody else who joins the chat and wants to see what I'm using. Anyways, so what I was doing is I made this 100x, but now the origin is actually kind of messed up. So if I were to go here and then say, actually, so I know that 5 was basically where this window is. And so I can increase the origin. I need to go check the distance, see what that looks like. And then I'm going to move it maybe like 20. See if it moved down or moved up. I think that moved up. So this moves the origin down, or says that the origin point is now moved up this much. I'm not sure. Yeah, me increasing this moves the origin point down, I think. So I guess it's not even changing it. Maybe it's not even using origin at the moment. Oh, it's rotated. I wonder how that works. The origin's probably pre-rotation. I literally don't see it moving. Maybe the origin doesn't work after. I don't know. This should work though. Maybe it's the origin for rotations and not positioning. Okay, so it doesn't actually move it. What it says is that when I rotate it, this is the origin that I rotate about. So that's interesting. sort of unexpected. Oh, that, I don't need to move it that direction. Oh my gosh. I rotated it wrong. So I actually want to move this up 20 or 40, I think. So there's a problem here, which is I don't think I'm moving it up at all. Maybe I am. Maybe it just has to be moved up so far. Okay, did I move it up or? Nice, okay. So I'm actually inside it now. Apparently there's a giant light thing here. That's actually hilarious because it will, if I put a giant light in there, it will illuminate the entire map. The render distance isn't great enough to see it, unfortunately. I'm moving really fast. I'm just going to come to the conclusion that that's funny, first off. That looks goofy as heck. And then second